We are going to have, Fox is going to have the first debate. It's going to be in the month of August this year in Milwaukee.
Yes, that's exciting.
I would not be surprised if all three of us are named moderators. It would probably come down
I would be
within this show. Can we look into
I
that?
have a feeling it might be Brett Baer and Mark McCallum.
They're
Or
kind
us.
of our political team. We're the morning crew.
I think we'll be there for the morning show, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we
gonna,
don't want to work
let's-
after 10.
You know what? Let's turn it down. Let's say if
Turn it down.
because it's going to be too exhausting.
Oh, if they ask us?
Yes,
Okay.
we're going to turn it down. All right, and just let me just remind you to get dressed because we're in the second
Especially
half. If you're in Lake Michigan.
Sister Hazel,
Yes.
who has never been on our show.
All right. Meanwhile, President Biden, they should though. President Biden, AJ, you heard me. President Biden is in Dublin right now and is set to meet with the president of Ireland any moment. This is a live look at the presidential motorcade not moving.
That's right, with the U.S. and the Irish flags on the beast. Meantime, the president relying on his son, Hunter Biden, to intervene as the president had some trouble with some questions from some kids.
Fox's Peter Doocy is live in Dublin with the latest. Peter?
Today, who told us that during a tour of the Irish countryside yesterday, President Biden had the time of his life. That is not something that you usually hear about a work trip, but we're also being told at the same time this is not a taxpayer-funded vacation. And as you mentioned, he does have his son Hunter here with him in Ireland, and Hunter gets some credit for helping facilitate a Q&A with President Biden, but not with the press.
What's the top steps to success? Well, making sure that we don't all have COVID. What are you talking about?
To success. Like, what's the key to success?
What's the key to success? There was a guy named Jesse Helms from South Carolina, North Carolina. And he was a very conservative guy who was not very crazy about African Americans when he got here. We always had fights.
Back home, Hunter remains a top target of the House Oversight Committee, whose chairman, James Comer, tweets, over the past 2 weeks, GOP oversight has combed through Biden family bank records and suspicious activity reports filed against Hunter Biden. We also continue to gather info from whistleblowers. It doesn't look good for POTUS. That's as an Obama-era White House stenographer is going on camera to accuse the Bidens of wrongdoing in Ukraine.
Joe Biden is a criminal. He was conducting malfeasance in office to enrich his family. Jake Sullivan is a conspirator in that. And there's more Obama officials involved in it, I believe.
And President Biden does have some official meetings today. That's what he's on the way to. But the way the agenda is being described, it seems like these meetings are the kind of thing that could usually be accomplished with a phone call. Back to you.
Right, Peter. And also, we have heard critics say that essentially it is simply a taxpayer-funded family reunion as he traces his roots. So, Peter, while you're there in Dublin, I hope you trace your Doocy family roots, too. And I'm not talking about at that pub.
Aren't the Doocy's known for generations of just making sure the Guinness tastes okay?
It's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go over to the storehouse.
Right. Absolutely. It's not like he's got to scramble and get ready for a press conference. The president's not going to do it.
No,
The president does not have a press conference scheduled for the 4-day trip, yet he talked to the children of the parents who work at the embassy, and he said to the kids, you can ask me anything you want. A child asked him, what's the key to success? What's the step to success? And he goes on about Jesse Helms, doesn't get the state right. His son has to correct him, and then his son says, Dad, they're asking the key to success.
Right, and then he said COVID.
Yeah, and then later he has to say, you need to walk the line, Dad. He said, oh, I need to walk the line. He said, yes, you have to walk the line and say thank you. He says, okay, thank you, and then he left.
Right. China's got to be worried. What is America up to? The president's looking to his heritage. He couldn't do this on his own time. He went to Camp David for 4 days. He couldn't have done this for those 4 days and then go back and become president again.
Or at least if you are going to go and visit another country, take questions. It's a press conference. Talk about what's happening in China.
Sure.
You have an obligation to our allies. It's a massive leak. Our allies are upset. People are unsure. That China just warned us to keep everybody out of the South China Sea. We're going to be shooting off rockets. I don't want to get hit by some shells. They're still surrounding Taiwan. We're watching now. After Emmanuel Macron throws us under the bus, now Germany's going over to visit China. Right before there is Brazil. And there's the President of the United States smartly walking across the red carpet.
Yep, shaking hands with, I believe, the President of Ireland. Our president is going to be chatting with their president, also their prime minister. They are, I think he's going to make a drive-through over at Parliament. He's going to shake a bunch of hands, but nonetheless, because there does not seem to us to be much getting done, that's why there are critics who are calling it a taxpayer-funded family reunion, rediscovering his roots. And now he's going to turn toward the cameras, and this is going to be he's going to say, okay, everybody's
She's like, that's not my husband. I'm working over here.
Where's Hunter when you need him?
Now everybody's he's taking a picture. All right. Very good.
So we'll continue to follow that and give you any updates if he talks to more kids.
Dublin is beautiful. It is a beautiful city.
Oh, exactly.
Very nice.
My dad has been to play golf.
Right.
And I hear it's a lot of fun.
Peter wanted to try to be able to do that just so that he could say he played golf in Dublin.
They got a lot of grass.
All right, let's move over to San Francisco because murders have spiked 20%. Robbery has surged more than 13% so far this year. Comparison to last year, yes.
Right.
The mayor, London Breed, was interviewed. It was a heated interview. Because she was asked about the criticism after we saw the tech exec, the Cash App founder, Bob Lee, was stabbed to death, and then also the San Francisco fire commissioner was, here's the video, was attacked in front of his mom's house, slashed with a knife, and had to have surgery because of a skull fracture. Crime is out of control in San Francisco, and she said you're taking that out of context. And at another point, she blamed President Trump for it. Here's a clip of that interview.
I think that oftentimes because of social media, because of cameras and how people are able to publicize things that are happening in a moment, it is taken completely out of context in terms of highlighting the entire city as being unsafe. That's not entirely true. It's sad because I think it's just San Francisco has been a target for so long and used as an example because we're innovative, we're creative, we come up with out-of-the-box ideas and a number of other things to push forward change in our communities. And I think that sadly, with the previous president, it was a target. It just really is unfortunate that people are using a social media platform to redirect towards San Francisco.
So she is angry that there is video of these attacks.
It's incredible.
And yesterday we showed the video taken from the front porch of the former San Francisco fire commissioner's house of a guy beaten. Okay, this is what we showed you yesterday. A guy comes over, whacks him with like a pipe, and then stabs him. Out of context.
That's out of context.
Here's the context. The guy is stabbed and he's hit in the head with the pipe. And then, the other thing, and Ainsley, you talked about this. Last week we talked about how that tech mogul, the Cash App founder, Bob Lee, was murdered in San Francisco. Remember, there is video of him staggering over to a Camry. Asking for help. He had been stabbed by who knows whom, and he was asking for help. He lifts his shirt and shows the stab wound, and the person in the Camry takes off. Which context does the mayor of San Francisco think we're not providing? He was stabbed, he was in the good part of San Francisco, and crime is out of control. But she is at the top, and it makes her look bad.
Of course, Paul, the city's a mess, and Gavin Newsom left it a mess, and she made it worse. Congratulations. Paul Pelosi, I don't think that was a fine moment in law enforcement and security. Was that taken out of context as he was knocked out? And the guy's in jail. I believe he was in court the other day. They have an interesting, innovative way to restaff their police. They're actually hiring people that are unqualified and undocumented. So that is thinking, that is out-of-the-box thinking, so I stand corrected. And of course, it is a perfect time to blame President Trump. That was 2.5 years ago, but it is President Trump's fault that Gavin Newsom destroyed the city, that homeless is out of control, that crime is up 20% in terms of murders, which I don't know if that, but put it this way, 80% of people weren't murdered, and robbery 13% rise to 13%. But we should think about the 77% that weren't robbed. Here is a letter from London Breed, the San Francisco mayor, asking for more help. The scale of the problem is beyond our local capacity. We need additional and ongoing support from the Department of Justice to arrest and prosecute drug dealers so residents, families, and workers feel safe in the neighborhoods. Was that taken out of context?
So she flip-flops, because wasn't she talking
100%.
about at one point defunding police? Then she realized the community didn't like that. They saw crime going up. Then she says, I need federal help. And then she does, that was last month, what Brian just read. And then she does this interview with a local reporter saying it's all taken out of context. It's Trump's fault.
The brilliance of her comment, reaching out to the U.S. attorney, saying, hey, we need federal help, is she wants the Department of Justice and federal law enforcement to come in at no cost to San Francisco, rather than raise the taxes of people in San Francisco. They're already through the roof. To hire the 550 cops that they need, call in the feds.
You know,
and who's at the top of the Fed? Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, you watch, he's going to do something to try to help.
Remember the former president did? He sent in federal troops over to Portland. And
how long is it going to take to fix these cities that are broken now? Once they realize they do need the police, once they realize they need more funding for the police, how long does it take to rebuild? Because Gavin Newsom already said, if you're homeless, you're welcome in my state. Come to my state. So now they're all there.
Right.
And they're sleeping on the grates.
The problem is there is no consequence when you commit a crime. And that just breeds more crime. That is the case in San Francisco. It's the case here in New York City, Washington, D.C., Philly, Chicago. I could go on, but it's only a 3-hour show.
And it's no different than when you're raising your children. If there are no consequences for their bad actions, when they're little, you put them in timeout or you discipline them. If you don't do that, then they run all over you, and it gets worse and worse with time.
That's one way to take it. Also, I believe it's out-of-the-box thinking. That out-of-the-box thinking of no consequences for crime and welcoming homeless, you got to open up your mind to different ways of handling things. So that's a different way to run your city. And raising taxes and making it untenable.
And it's not working.
And plus, it's a lot of hills there. You got to have really good quads.
You have to know how to parallel park.
Right. The only people safe are the 49ers and Giants.
And put your emergency brake on.
Yes.
All right, now to a Fox weather alert. The Gulf Coast is under a flash flood warning with a strong storm system expected to batter Florida with more tropical downpours.
Look at that. Fort Lauderdale Airport forced to shut down, straining people in their cars, as you can see right there. They're at the terminal.
Well, we need Fox Weather multimedia journalist Brandy Campbell, who's live in Fort Lauderdale. Brandy.
Good morning, guys. Last night was a horrific situation for some people out here. And as you can see behind me, it continues as some folks are waking up to roads that are still flooded. You can see there's a lot of traffic as the sun is coming up, people trying to get to work, I'm going to assume. But they're having to try to travel through these conditions still. In a 24-hour time frame, just over 25 inches of rain was recorded near the airport in a weather stem station. That was in a 24-hour time frame. The city says its system is only designed to take 3 inches of rain in that same time frame. So we can see why we're still dealing with this, and they're asking residents to be patient and allow it to drain naturally or absorb into the ground. But still, a really terrible situation this morning for folks. Some people's cars are still stuck in water or getting towed at this moment. But let's take a look at what it was like for people last night as these storms rolled through, some really stalling over this area for an extended amount of time. The National Weather Service actually issued an emergency flash flood. And that, they said, it was a particularly dangerous situation, and people immediately needed to seek higher ground. We also had the situation happening at the airport. Around 4 p.m., they stated that their operations were going to be stalled. And that continues until today. It's closed until noon, until further notice, so we'll look for updates on that. And when it comes to schools, we're actually standing next to an elementary school. All of those are canceled, or I should say closed for today. And then we'll look for an update to see what they'll do tomorrow, because simply school buses and cars, they would have trouble really dropping off kids safely to go ahead and learn for the day. So these storms last night dropped a lot of water down in this area. And I could say this area really wasn't prepared to handle all of it. Back to you guys here from Fort Lauderdale in Florida.
No kidding. All right. Brandy, thanks for the live report.
Looks like that car behind her is having some trouble.
You know, and I was just thinking, in the first hour, we did a couple of segments on electric vehicles with the big battery on the bottom of the car. Can you imagine driving through that? I just Googled it. If an electric vehicle's battery is damaged by a collision or water intrusion from a flood or driving through standing water, a short circuit can occur, which causes the cell to discharge energy and heat up. This can lead to an event called thermal runaway, in which heat propagates from one cell to the next, causing them to burn. I don't think that sounds good.
So you buy the electric car for $50,000 to $60,000. The battery burns out, and you have to buy a new one for what, $40,000, $50,000.
Just beware driving through standing water.
Also, you can't get AM radio. Do you believe that?
You can't.
Really?
Well, because
you can't hear Brian Kilmeade?
That's why. We got to make a stand.
No, that's
Wow.
true. Because
that might be on purpose.
The motor interferes with the
Biden might
AM
have done
band.
that.
Yeah. So we got to solve that problem too. Ashley, if you could work on that in the break.
I'm going to get my sign made, and I'm going to stand out there with a
picket. I want
Brian.
We need Brian. We need more Brian.
We need more Brian in our lives.
AM or Tesla.
Yeah, forget the cowbell. We need Brian.
Well, we're going to start your headlines with this. The latest on the massive leak of classified Pentagon documents. A source telling the Washington Post that the leaker works on a military base and shared sensitive materials with a group of friends online that he plays video games with. Now, despite the explosive report, the Biden administration says it still does not know who the leaker is.
Stress, Peter, we don't know who did this. We don't know for what reason, and we don't know what else this individual or individuals might have and might still release.
The latest batch of leaked documents revealed infighting among Russian military agencies growing reluctant to accurately report casualties in Ukraine. A federal appeals court partially blocks a ruling that would restrict access to the nation's most widely used abortion pill. Yesterday's ruling keeps the pill on the market, but the drug can no longer be shipped to people in the mail. Last week, a federal judge suspended the FDA approval of the abortion pill over concerns of the drug's safety. Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein asked to be temporarily replaced on the Judiciary Committee as she faces calls to resign due to her health. She has missed 60 of the Senate's 82 votes so far this year as she works from home in San Francisco, and her absence is prompting several fellow Democrats to call on her to step down. California Congressman Ro Khanna tweeting, "It is time for Senator Feinstein to resign. We need to put the country ahead of personal loyalty. While she has had a lifetime of public service, it is obvious she can no longer fulfill her duties." The Empire State Building shining red, white, and blue to usher in the second season of USFL football. It kicks off Saturday with a matchup between the Philadelphia Stars and the league's newest team, the Memphis Showboats. Now, unlike last season where all the games were played in Birmingham, Alabama, this season's games will be played in Detroit, Canton, Memphis, and Birmingham.
All across the USA.
Yeah, back and better than ever. Year two.
Love seeing the red, white, and blue. Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. 20 minutes after the air. Plus, a brand new study shows more Americans want to stay single and
As the debate over social media and its impact on mental health rages on, some states are taking action regarding kids. Last month, Utah became the first state in the union to pass a law limiting access to social media for kids under 18. Arkansas's governor signing similar legislation just yesterday. Utah State Representative Jordan Tusher sponsored his state's bill from Utah, and he joins us right now. Jordan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us today from Salt Lake City.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. We've been talking about this for a while. Social media, not necessarily a good thing for kids, right?
No, and I think the studies continually come out and show the major impacts that it's having to our youth.
Absolutely. And so we're going to go through some of the restrictions on your bill that has been, it's passed. Governor signed it. First of all, there's got to be an age verification to join. Digital curfew for people under 18, parental consent. The parents can access the kids' accounts, and it's going to take effect in about 11 months. So let's start at the beginning. What age does this apply to?
So it applies to all minors under 18. And we actually have a section of the code that says if you're under 16, there's a rebuttable presumption that you have been harmed and that you can come after social media companies for those harms. So a lot of social media companies we've talked to have said that they may consider putting additional restrictions on those youth under 16.
Sure. Also, I just mentioned there's a digital curfew. So essentially, you can't use it after 10:30 at night. Kids should kids should be in bed or doing their homework until 6:30 in the morning, right?
That's right. Now, it is a default. So what we were trying to do with these rules is give parents tools. So that's a default that's set. If a parent decides that their kids need some different rules, either it needs to go earlier than 10:30 or they allow their kids on later than 10:30, they can make those changes. But the default is 10:30 at night.
Also, this particular bill gives the parents the access to their children's accounts. But what's to stop a kid from starting up a burner account, a fake account?
So one of the things that we do in the bill is we require age verification. So all adults in the state, if they want an adult account that has unrestricted access, they have to prove that they're over 18. So if a kid gets on and tries to create a burner account, they would have to prove that they're over 18.
Sure. Listen, Jordan, I love everything about this because I think kids spend too much time on their phones the way it is. You've got 3 kids at your house. What's the reaction to what their dad has unfurled on the state of Utah?
Well, I'll say I think they were my biggest critics. They were concerned about how this would affect their friends and how they'd be able to interact with one another. But what was interesting is we met with a lot of kids and we said, would you rather have an all-out ban on social media or would you have more restrictions? Usually kids said they'd rather have a ban. They want to be on equal footing. And so what we tried to do with a lot of these restrictions is make it the same for all kids. So you don't have some kids that are socially ostracized and other kids aren't.
Interesting stuff. Utah could become the model for the country when it comes to social media and kids. Jordan Tuscher, sir, thank you very much for joining us today from Salt Lake City. Good luck.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. It is now 7:28 here on this Thursday. The 2024 field for the Republican presidential nomination could be getting more crowded as Senator Tim Scott has launched an exploratory committee as of yesterday.
People are starving for hope. They're starving for an optimistic, positive message that is anchored in conservative values. I want to share the gospel truth that faith in America means faith in each other.
All right, we got a political panel going to join us next on the race to the White House. They're coming up next right here on Fox and Friends. Good morning.
Opportunity, not a land of oppression. That the drug of victimhood being sold by Joe Biden and the radical left, it's wrong. I had all the challenges on the wrong side of the tracks. I thank God Almighty that I had mentors and a mother who believed that prayer was the key and faith unlocks those doors. They never surrendered. They always believed the best was coming.
Senator Tim Scott joining us on Fox and Friends yesterday after launching a 2024 presidential exploratory committee. But not everybody is happy about him potentially joining the White House race. The DNC already attacking him, writing, quote, Tim Scott wants to govern from the far conservative right, and his extreme record proves it. Joining us now to react, our political panel, we have former Nassau County Executive Laura Curran. Over there on the left, we have the Douglas Society founder and president, Rob Smith, who moved to Florida recently. We'll talk about that. And then we have Fox News contributor Joe Concha, who lives in New Jersey. So we have New York, Florida, and New Jersey with us. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Laura, I'll start with you. What do you make of him? He's already being attacked, but do you think that attack, a lot of Republicans want him to be very conservative?
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of credible, strong Republicans really champing at the bit, whether they've announced or doing an exploratory committee. So there's a deep bench. I'm just wondering if any of them can break through the clutter of Trump and his legal issues, which is going to dominate the news and our conversation for a long time.
Well, even if he doesn't, Joe, he could still be a vice president.
Precisely. And great point, by the way, because we saw this movie in 2016. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, very successful Republican senators, but they couldn't break through the domination that Donald Trump has on the media. And we're seeing it here again with Ron DeSantis, who is up and coming and looked like he may even overtake Trump in polls, and he did in a couple, and now he's down by 30 points. So Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, we wish them luck. I think the debates will be the key. I think the first one will be here on Fox News. It was announced yesterday. 25 million people could be watching like they did in August of 2015. That's where you could possibly draw a contrast to Donald Trump. The challenge that Tim Scott or Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis has is their policy positions mirror Donald Trump. So how do you draw that contrast, Ainsley?
Yeah, good point. So, Rob, this really allows him to raise money so he can foot the bill for his polling and cover any costs for travel. Do you think he will run?
I think that he will run, and I think he should run. I'm going to tell you why. His story and his compelling personal message is really in stark contrast to a lot of the other people that we have in the Republican primary field right now, right? So we have Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's message is Donald Trump's message. We've been hearing that. That's not going to stop. But Tim Scott has a message of coming up from nowhere, making something out of yourself in America. It's a very positive, affirming message. And I think that the positivity of his message is something that we're really not seeing in any of the other potential candidates.
He always
right
includes
now.
scripture and God, and his story is incredible.
His story is incredible and compelling, and this is not just a story that Black Americans can, aspire to, but this is a story for all Americans because it is the American story.
Another story is almost 11,000 New Yorkers have turned their driver's license in for a Florida driver's license in the first quarter of this year. We're in the middle of April. Rob, you're one of those. You left New York and you moved down to Miami. Why?
Well, okay, so I was a COVID refugee, so I left at the height of the lockdowns in 2020, and I moved to Florida to basically, escape all the insanity and to live in freedom. But honestly, I have to tell you, and we were talking a little bit before the segment, my quality of life is just better in every way in Florida. There's less of a commute, the weather's better, things are slightly cheaper. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And look, this is not to put down New York. We know there are things in New York that can only happen in New York, but I definitely know why New Yorkers are moving to Florida. The quality of life is just so much higher.
The problem
Thank
is
you,
to get to the
Governor
grocery
DeSantis.
store, to get to the gym, you have to drive so far. In New York, I just walk downstairs and I get my eggs.
I'm going to introduce you to a little thing called Instacart.
That's true. That changes everyone's life.
Listening to this.
Look,
three simple reasons. I'm jealous listening to Robin. We were talking the Greenman before.
Your kids are little. And you have like 12 more years, then you can move to Florida.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the way that's going to work because my family lives.
And your wife is a doctor.
Exactly, in Jersey. But she could be a doctor anywhere.
That's
right?
true.
And I could still work at Fox, I think, if I live in Florida. Lisa Booth, I believe.
You'd have a lot more money in your bank account.
Well, that's the thing. People are leaving because of the high taxes, the high crime, and this belief that elected leaders here do not have any interest in making things better. And when you have district attorneys like Alvin Bragg here in Manhattan, who won't prosecute felonies, right? He rejects half of them. Suddenly people don't feel safe and they say, where are my tax dollars going exactly? Because it's not to make me feel safe anymore, and it's not to make my commute better. So that's why people move to Florida, because as you said, it's the United States of Florida. It's free.
And if I can hop on that point, I'm sorry. In Florida, you know that the...
Rồi vàng ha, vàng là mình cho cái này vô. Đó, em nghe cái vị nó bốc lên, cái mùi nó là sao?
Dạ, cái mùi nó thơm, nó nhẹ nhẹ mà nó khác với cái mùi tỏi.
Đúng rồi. Là nó dậy mùi khắp mọi nơi đúng không? Cái mùi tỏi nó chỉ là lúc đó thôi. Chứ còn cái mùi này á, em đứng từ xa nó cũng nghe mùi nữa. Cái gì là hay ở chỗ đó?
Đây, mình sẽ thêm củ hành tím vô nữa.
Ok. Củ hành tím sao? Ví dụ mình kiểm tra cái này á, nó là có cái cục to như vậy đó, mình xăm vô. Nếu mà nó không còn ta thấy cái nữa là không đỏ. Bây giờ là mình sẽ cho cái lá đắng này vô ha. Đó. Và nhưng mà mình cũng xem chừng là cái độ đắng của mình đó, mình ăn nào cho nó vừa, chứ nếu mà mình cho nó nhiều quá có người cũng không ăn được, thì nó cái vị của nó là đắng rồi. Đó. Rồi vậy đây là chúng ta đã
hoàn thành được một món.
Món này là món lòng đắng đó. Bây giờ em có thể quay.
Rồi thơm.